11 Maret, Surakarta, Indonesia. Terima kasih telah hadir pada acara ini melalui Zoom meeting. Acara ini juga disiarkan secara langsung melalui kanal YouTube Fakultas Teknik UNS. Bapak, Ibu, dan para peserta yang saya hormati, acara hari ini menggunakan dua bahasa.
Is using two languages, English and Indonesia. You can choose the language that you prefer by clicking on the interpretations button below that is available at the bottom of your screen.
This program is using two languages, English and Indonesia. You can choose the language that you prefer to follow by clicking on interpreter button below that is available on your screen. Baik, pertama-tama.
All right, first of all, I would like to read our agenda in this seminar, ladies and gentlemen. And the first one, that is the opening remarks from the Dean of Technical Faculty, Mr. Dr. Insinyur Solihin As'ad, and then continued with 6 presentations, material presentations who are already joining with us. The first session is regarding about the challenges related to data access and the utilizations in supporting the decision-making progress. And it will be conveyed by the representative of the provincial government and municipal governments. Continued with the second sessions about One Data Indonesia, which will be conveyed by Mr. Wahyu Andrianto as the Manager of Planning, Analysis, and Utilizations of One Data Indonesia. And the next sessions about data management for integrated water resource management in Indonesia, which will be conveyed by Mr. Muhammad Irfan Saleh, PhD, as Directors of Water Resources from the Ministry of PPN Bapenas. Continued with the fourth sessions, which is data in the regional managements of Sungai Bengawan Solo, and in this regard will be presented by Mr. Ali Rahmat as the head of KPI on the BBWS Bengawan Solo. Sessions 5, Professor Yong Ping Wei from the School of Earth and Environmental Science from the University of Queensland will perform the sessions about the types of data required for IWRM. And the last sessions will be conveyed by Dr. Frederick Bookhart about the process and governance framework for data collections, quality control, disseminations, and information's flow. And after that, after all of the materials presentations is done, and then we will continue with the discussions or Q&A sessions that will be led by the moderator. And the last one is the closing sessions.
Bapak, Ibu, dan para peserta yang saya hormati, selanjutnya saya akan membacakan.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, next I will read about the house rule of this seminar. First of all, the participants should change or rename your Zoom account into the name _ your institutions. And then second of all of the participants should not turn on the microphone or mute the audio during the seminar except through the discussions and Q&A sessions. And number 3, the participants are expected to turn on the camera if it is possible and use the virtual background that committee already sent through the chat features in this Zoom meeting. Number 4, during the questions, you may submit the questions to the speaker on the chat feature. Number 5, the participants must fulfill the attendance form on the link that will be shared by the committee at the end of the presentation sessions. and the engineering faculty of 11 Maret University in collaborations with Bengawan Solo River Basin, Ministry of National Development Planning or BAPNAS, One Data Indonesia, and University of Queensland, Australia. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this public seminar activity, it is part of a joint effort to build integrated data, especially regarding the water management in Bengawan Solo River and its surroundings. Unifying data as one data that is integrated and can be used jointly. And furthermore, it can be developed as the research center. It is our expectations that we hope to realize in the near future. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Bengawan Solo River, with a length of 600 kilometers, is one of the major rivers in the island of Java and Indonesia. This river crosses various cities or even more than one province that have direct contributions or indirect contributions to around 20 million people in the vicinity. This river needs to be cared for and managed properly so that the lives around 20 million people around it will be able to run well. There will be many stakeholders are involved in this big river, including the Bengawan Solo River Basin, the Central Java Provincial Government, the East Java Provincial Government, a member of district and city government, and other institutions. The accurate and integrated information about the Bengawan Solo River that is needed and integrated, it is very critical for the management and utilizations of Bengawan Solo River can be maximized. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our rectors of 11 Maret University has initiated Creative Leap program that aims to realize the work in an innovative and creative program that will provide a great benefit to a greater community and others. This year, one of the Creative Leap program that received the support for the rector of UNS, it is an effort to integrate the data about Bengawan Solo River, which later can be utilized by many people, be it from the UNS academics or other agencies beyond UNS. And we expected that this is going to be the center of study. The expected target is to develop an integrated database on Bengawan Solo River that is integrated, and then it can be utilized by all of lecturers who conduct research from various aspects, students, local governments, and various other stakeholders. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we really hope that this data integrations effort in terms of managing the water resource of Bengawan Solo River will get support from all of the stakeholders. The model of using shared data that is integrated and become a shared data for conducting studies. That certainly be done in various way, not only in Bengawan Solo River. Our vast country with a large populations require an integrated data system. That way, the accuracy of data will be better so that it is always easier for all parties to solve the problems in it. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for organizing the public seminar today, we would like to thank all of the keynote speaker and the institutions and the Bengawan Solo River Basin's office, the Bapanas, One Data Indonesia, University of Queensland. I also thanks to all of the parties who are willing to make an agreement for data integrations in the context of managing the water of Bengawan Solo River. And I also would like to say thank you very much for the Creative Leap team for the integrations of Bengawan Solo River, headed by Ibu Dr. Ratri, for all of the hard work in actualizing this activity. And I do believe that this public seminar will provide an enlightenment both for data integration in the context of water management for Bengawan Solo River and also data integrations for other matters that support the national planning and development. Have a fruitful discussions, ladies and gentlemen. Success for all of us. Thank you very much. May God bless us all. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon us. Thank you very much. Dr. Solihin Asad, University of 11 Maret, the Dean of Engineering Faculty. And the next agenda is the main agenda of today's sessions, which is the presentation sessions from our keynote speaker. And these sessions will be moderated by Dr. Krishna Tri Hadi Pramana. Dr. Krishna is a lecturer in the Urban and Regional Planning Program, the Faculty of Engineering, the University of 11 Maret, Surakarta. And he earned his PhD in Town Planning from University of Liverpool, United Kingdom. And some of the research project that has been carried out with Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, New York University, Universiteit van Amsterdam, UN Habitat, and Japan International Cooperation Agency, where some of the journal has been published in journal and conference paper. Dr. Krishna, the screen is yours to moderate the sessions. Thank you.
Ibu Lintang sudah pengantar ya.
Thank you very much, Ibu Lintang, for the introductions. Ya, Bapak Solihin Asad. Yeah, so this is related to the seminar that we're about to do in the next 3 hours. So thank God. And we have 5 speakers now, yeah? So the 5 speaker who will be a keynote speaker, of course, they will be given any insight with the process of data integrations in regard of developing the water resource management and how to make it better in the future. And we will have 5 sessions of presentations, and then it will be end with the Q&A session. So we invite you to share.
Di sini kita akan masuk ke sesi pertama, kurang lebih 15 menit. Kita akan menggali apa sesungguhnya yang sedang dihadapi di level pemerintah daerah terkait dengan integrasi data dan kaitannya dengan kendala-kendala dalam pengambilan keputusan terkait dengan pengelolaan sumber daya air di wilayah sungai. Ini bersama kita mudah-mudahan sudah ada Bapak Haryadi dari Pusat Data Provinsi Jawa Tengah, Pusdataru Jawa Tengah. Ya, saya pikir sudah ada ya Pak. Sehat Pak Haryadi? Alhamdulillah. Ya, baik. Pak Haryadi, silakan Pak disampaikan kira-kira menurut pendapat Bapak apa saja persoalan yang sekarang sedang dihadapi dan mungkin kedepannya perlu kita catat sebagai hal yang perlu ditingkatkan ya kondisinya. Silakan Pak Haryadi.
Sir. Terima kasih Pak. All right, thank you very much, Bapak, as the moderator, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and all of the participants in the data and integrations in promoting integrated water resource management. Yeah, we were requested to convey about the issues and challenges. And yeah, my name is Haryadi. Yeah, from the special planning. I'm not from the research centers, the data centers, sorry. And yeah. Am I audible? Yes, I can hear you, sir. Okay, so in general, we are in the Pusdataru centers. We have communicated about this with our colleague in UNS. And yeah, the head of our office has provided the supporting letter about these activities. In my opinion, the most important things for us to do is actions about, what about the actions? Meaning that our challenges and data issues are most of the times, when we are trying to make a decisions, then we are looking for the data, right? And sometimes it need times, a longer time to be able to access the data. The idea of this integrated data, in my opinion, why not trying, let's say that we're making a website,
kita jelaskan data integrasi
and
ini.
in this website we will explain about this integrated data, and we can input what are the data that is related to these issues, starting from the data, be it the digital or the reporting data or daily report data that can be open for public. And we need to gather this data to be included in this website. So it's like a trial and error, be it by collecting this data. There will be a decisions-making process or the policy that we're about to make. This website can support these issues. And I do really think that we need to go that way. And then at the same time, the interests or directions of this water resource management and where it will be taken. But then at the same time, meanwhile, talking about this, we also need to implement the actions. We need to implement the actions, and we need to monitor whether this data sharing could be implemented continuously or in routines, based on our tasks and responsibility. Because I think that each of these stakeholders, of course, they have the source of data about the water resource management. We are in the office of Pusdataru, we are as the public institutions. We're very open about all of the data related to the data of water resources. For level of the or hydrology data, and including, apart from monitoring the water resources, we also monitor with the special planning so that all of the digital data related to one's area, the data plannings are available with us. Even the basic geospatial data, even though the data, it's not our product, but then we also get this from another institutions. By starting the actions, ladies and gentlemen, I do really think that we can start learning, be it, just everything that we do. Is it a weakness or a strength? We need to identify it. So beside talking about the directions or the objective and then the other concepts, but and in another hands, we need to do this first so that we can identify the problems of this data. There are data that is open for public, and I don't think it's a problem because there is a law and regulations that direct us to share about this data. But then there are data that is not open for the public. That's not a problem. But the data, if the data are official, then it can be accessed for public, then let's start structurizing it, yeah? And so we don't have to wait all of it to settle, and then we establish the data system. But in my opinion, to start this, of course, it will help us in identifying the problems. What are the real problems? I think that's all. It's just a simple explanations for me because, yeah, if each of us actually we have the link web about the source of data, and we can link that to the systems that we're about to establish so that, yeah, it will be integrated in one data. So it could accelerate to help us to get the data even quicker. And the process of decisions making progress will be accelerated. Yeah, to find data quicker. It doesn't mean that everyone can access or where to go. But by making a systems or web, I think it's better so that, yeah, for the new people, yeah, probably they might not understand about the integrated data, but once they know about this, the water resource management of Bengawan Solo Rivers integrated data, and when they're about to do research or something like that, if it is linked with the systems of or this website, then it's going to be easier for them to access and to know about the data that they need. Yeah.
Ya,
Jadi arahnya mungkin lebih seperti itu
Yeah.
Pak Krisna karena
I
kecepatan
think that's all, Pak Krishna, yeah, because these accelerating process are very much needed. Thank you very much, Pahari, for the insight that you conveyed to us specifically related to the problems of data integrations. Yeah. So I can conclude from your presentations. Thank you very much to correct me. Yeah. You are from the Public Works Departments. Yeah. And Special Planning. And you said earlier that what's important for us now, the progress needs to run. And meanwhile, we're about to learn at the same time what are the things that needs to be developed during the process. And many times, the problems in the national governments and the provincial governments on the sub-district governments will be very much influenced by the availability of infrastructures and then the capacity of the manager and the apparatus who will determine the process on how integrating this data. Yeah, what so that it could be in line starting from the national level to the sub-district level. And next, I would like to invite Pak Sujono from the Public Work Departments from Wonogiri. Good afternoon, Pak Sujono. Previously, we heard about from the provincial level, yeah? The previous speaker said we need to integrate this. We need to start it first, slowly but sure. We need to see what are the weaknesses in this integrated data and then how to perfect this. Bapak Sujono, can you please explain to me in line with Pak Haryadi said earlier, or probably is there any local issues that we need to know? Pak Sujono, the time and screen is yours. Thank you very much, Pak Chris. Now let me introduce myself. My name is Sujono. I am from Wonogiri district in the water resource management. So before I want to share about the problems in Wonogiri district, I want to share to you a little bit the flow of the problems in our area. So previously, for us, we are irrigation services, yeah, irrigation office.
Nah, sementara untuk menjadi kewenangan kabupaten ini ada beberapa hal yang kami
There are
rasakan
several things that we experience, so that, yeah,
dengan yang
maybe it's a
disampaikan
little bit
oleh
different
Pak
from
Hadi.
what
Mungkin
Bahari
dari
has
kami
said
ini
earlier.
mengkaji dulu
Maybe
masalahnya yang ada di
for
kami,
us,
kemudian baru kita
we
lakukan
assess what are the
langkah-langkah
problems, and then after that we determine
yang
what
ada
type
di
of
kami
measure that we're going
di
to take.
kabupaten lain,
Probably our
yang ada di
problems
provinsi
compared to
lain.
other district or other
Ya.
provinces might slightly
Maka
different.
kalau di kami dengan adanya
Then,
otonomi daerah
with
ini
the regional autonomous,
penerapan itu dari provinsi ke daerah ini banyak pengurangan personil yang ada di kami.
we
Sehingga
there's a lot of
pada saat
staff
itu
that are reduced. So at that
berkurangnya
time,
orang-orang yang
yeah,
mempunyai
maybe there is a
keterampilan
lack of
di
people who
bidang
are
air dan
expert
tata.
in the irrigation systems at that time.
Dengan
And
adanya
then
seperti itu,
with
otomatis
these issues, automatically the data,
telah ada pada waktu
which is in
masih
place at that times was still manual, like the debit, water debit data,
saluran dan data
or
sebagainya, ini
the
kan masih manual, sehingga pemeliharaan data ini
data about water channels, yeah, so that the data is not well maintained. Moreover, in our departments or irrigations departments, there's a lot of changing that happens.
terjadi beberapa
And
pengalian ini mempengaruhi pada
some of these
data kami.
shifting
Kemudian,
issues, it's also impacting our data, quality of data.
sampai saat
The
ini
next issues
sarana prasarana
is,
kami ini
up
semakin
until now, our means of and facilities are
seperti jaringan irigasi,
limited. For example, the measurement tools, yeah,
banyak yang hilang.
or the irrigation tools
Seperti
are damaged, yeah.
kehilangan pintu air.
For example,
Bagaimana kita mau mengukur kalau memang satu
there's a damage on the
yang kedua
water
juga
gate.
alat ukurnya yang
And
tidak
yeah, the
ada.
measurement tools that cannot be used anymore.
Kemudian
Then
yang
after that,
sebenarnya ini masalah
another
aset,
things
ini
related to the assets
berdasarkan Permen
based
PU nomor 44
on
2015
the regulations of public works.
Kabupaten Wonogiri
It is clear that the Wonogiri district,
28.000
we have 28,700 hectares with the amount of dams, more or less 300 of water gate. But then, as time passed by, we're not only dealing with the irrigation issues and as well as the water resource. So for other data, we don't have it. But until right now, we feel that there is no clarity because the assets or the asset managements in the district level, for example, these irrigations, this assets is not handed over to us by the district. And in Wonogiri district, yes, we have a several irrigations area that is under responsibility of the provincial government. And
tampungan air lainnya seperti ada embung, ada telaga ini yang kadang-kadang masih
for
belum
the
jelas.
other facility like reservoir, it's not clear yet because some of them built by the province and some of them are built by the center. All right, Pak Sujono, thank you very much. So I capture your idea, yeah? Your idea on the regional level. The challenge is that the capacity are different, be it with the human resources or be it with the tools and as well as the assets. But the asset is not coming with the good governance, yeah, to ease the process. For example, you highlighted previously that the assets in the district level is not being handed over officially to you. So it's going to be very hard for the sub-district in managing this in order to monitor and as well as to evaluate. that. All right, thank you very much, Pak Sujono. Now I'm going to move to the third speaker, yeah, from Sukoharjo, from
Pak Ibnu Cahyana, Kabid Infrastruktur.
Bapel Bangda.
Adakah Pak Ibnu? Oke. Kalau memang tidak,
And yeah,
belum ada,
Pak Ibnu is not joining with us. Pak Ibnu is from the Regional Planning, Research and Development Agency. We still have 20 minutes, yeah? I want to highlight about what Pak Haryadi has said to us earlier from Central Java Province, yeah, from Pusdataru, the Office of Public Works and Water Resources, and as well as Special Plan. And it is clarified by Pak Sujono from Wonogiri District, from the Public Works, yeah? Basically, the data management, it is related to the human resources and the infrastructures that are different and added with another problems to determine the clarity about the governance area. This is not only the problems faced by the Central Java, but in Indonesia and another country, in fact. And it's become the basis for us so that we can imagine about the problems that happen. Now I'm going to go to the second sessions, yeah? I'm going to go to the second sessions and we will hear about the next presentations, yeah? Like what Pariadi and Pasujono said earlier, Indonesia has introduced something called, yeah, the policy of one data Indonesia. And joining with us, Bapak Wahyu Andrianto, MSIS, yeah? The Manager of Planning, Analysis, and Utilizations of One Data Indonesia. Pak Wahyu Andrianto, are you here with us? Can you hear me, Bapak? Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much. Okay, Pak Andri. And thank you very much, Pak Andri. And I'm going to give the screen to you. We have 20 minutes. And we would love to listen to your explanations about the policy of One Data Indonesia. Yeah, thank you very much. May I share my screen? Yes, over to you. Yeah, so the access is not given to me yet. Please wait a moment. First of all, I would like to say sorry. My name is Wahyu Adrianto. You can call me Andri from One Data Indonesia, representing Pak Oktoriali, who cannot join with us today. And I am on my way right now, yeah, from Lampung, and I will go to Banten. So yeah, I'm so sorry if I'm shaking. So I need to turn off my camera. Yeah. Can you share your screen, sir? 20 minutes, and I'm going to be the timekeeper. Yeah, thank you very much. All right, so we would like to give our highest appreciations for the UNS organizing these meetings because, yeah, from One Data Indonesia, our approach are most likely to the thematic data. So the thematic data will empower how to gather bigger data compared to the data or smaller data. And yeah, the context is about the integrations, the data integrations. Yeah, this is just a little bit of Satu Data Indonesia at a glance. Yeah, it is to improve data quality for better national policy making. Yeah, and the main task is data governance. And I think we need to understand that Satu Data Indonesia or One Data Indonesia become the huge, it's not become a warehouse of data, but our main task, it is to ensure that the data is produced by who in one place, yeah, or a single source of growth, and then it can be exchanged or interoperability by standardizing the metadata, yeah, so that the data can be shared. And on the left hand side, you can see our main products, yeah. We can say that this is our main product. Actually, there are two. The first one is the data portal, and what most important thing is that the data catalog. And in data catalog, it is utilized for the national interest, but as well as regional interest. And at the same time, yeah, there were an input from Mr. Moderator. There are a different pace between the national and regional, right? Yes, so the national, the views are bigger. Of course, when we talk about,
Itu tentunya kalau di daerah bisa lebih gesit biasanya.
yeah, talking about the data integrations. Okay, this is very contextual for the regional development, yeah? So the pace on the regional level, it is faster compared to the national level, but the different pace, we need to agree about the standardization. So once the data catalog wants to be established and it is getting more complete with the data exchange, yeah, it could be done horizontally or vertically. And once the standardizations is implemented, like what Pak Haryadi said earlier, yeah, to accelerate the actions, to create portal or website, it can be implemented. I'm so sorry, I'm losing the voice of the speaker. So the data exchange standardizations needs to be implemented first. And by doing so, the data that are collected will not mess up. Once the data is collected, we will record the metadata and it can be managed. Yeah, there won't be any confusions of any new data or to which data that we need to use. And once it's in the data catalog, then it will be easier for us. And the data assets will be collected.
Sudah bagi-bagi gitu ya. Sebenarnya satu data Indonesia itu bukan hanya di sekretariat satu
Yeah,
data Indonesia.
so in the right side, there will be a main partisan governance dimensions, yeah? Bappenas as the lead of coordinator, yeah, of one data forum from out of 5 ministries and 2 institutions. And for the data statistic, of course, the working together with Indonesian statistic, we also have the instruments to enforce or to make sure that the governance of data can run well. But most important things is that, yeah, if the technical and the semantic has been in place, we also need to make sure that it, yeah, once we got a deal and once we have a problem, we can ensure that the parties or the working unit or institutions that is responsible for this data, there won't be any duplications from other places. I think, yeah, that's a little bit of the point of view. We're the one who make sure that the data can be produced by the right institutions and coming from one source of data. And we would like to interview a little bit about the holistic, integrated, thematic, and spatials of data. So if we integrated the data, it's not going to be enough. First of all, we need to create the approach of thematic or contextual. The data, if it's not contextual, the concern could be different. And to gather this data, it can be start from defining the needs of the data. What's the data for? And yeah. So this is just an illustration. I'm very sorry. Yeah, there's no data about the reservoir basins yet. This is one of the example that I can pull out. And first of all, let's say that we determine the topic, for example, food security, and then H is holistic. It means that if we're talking about the food security, it's not only talking about the availability of food, but from the supply, the fertilizer, distributions, and the marketing. And then it can be seen here clearly. In food security, it's not only the responsible under one ministry or institutions, and for the land supply, maybe from the Ministry of HRBPN and the Ministry of Agriculture, and so on and so forth, Ministry of Industry, and the Ministry of Trade, and up until to the private sectors, yeah, about the food security. You can imagine that if data is coming from any institutions of the governments, if you cannot disseminate this, then the data will not connect it to one another. And the I is integrative. Integrated, it means that it needs to be integrated. What does it mean by that? Yeah, we can see that the data could could speak or could be exchanged one to another. And then it can only be the same if we do a disseminations or socializations so that the data could compare one to another, yeah, through the same standard. And the standard should be in one metadata. And the S is spatial. And as we all know, of course, we're not going to be able to take the right decisions, yeah, by not talking about the spatial dimensions, by not seeing what's on the left and what's on the right. Imagining how big of the urgency for intervene something in the river basins area. And the correlations with the river basins, we're not only talking about one district or two districts, but to global level, yeah, influenced by the policy of the developments, maybe from the remote area, from the river basins, where it is built for the industrial area. I think, yeah, we need to see this furthermore. Okay, yeah, you have time. Please speak slowly, Bapak, because we have the interpreter working with us today. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to you several illustrations, yeah, initiated by the Ministry of Public Works. And this is the database or ORG or .org, yeah. We've seen that this is a very great improvement, but then we need to enforce about this, that the standard could connect it one another with the same data. So I'm not going to talk about the metadata in specific details, but then in SDI or One Data Indonesia, the concerns is in the spatial data, in statistic data. What is the correlations? Because once we have the development planning, of course, we're talking about the tubular data, and then it could be connected to the visual presentations in the spatial planning. For the metadata or statistic data, it is determines from the statistic of Indonesia, and meanwhile, for the spatial data from the BIG, and the standard has been completed. So in short, if later we want to build a integrated data, when the data is collected, we need to fulfill the data for all of the type of metadata. And please utilize the standard in SDI or Satu Data Indonesia for the data exchange. You can contact the Satu Data Indonesia or Indonesian Statistic for more detailed spatial planning. So when the data are collected by any means, then in the future, we can record the metadata in more detailed manners. And once we have followed the standard of SDI and Indonesian statistic, we can add the attributes of the data mapping that is used by certain sectors or certain institutions, but minimum, it could be unified, yeah? And standard provided by the institutions. And in Satu Data Indonesia, we have, like I mentioned earlier, we have data catalog with several feature and browser, be it from statistic data and spatial data. And then next year, we will do the spatial and statistic. And we also have the metadata viewer by ensuring that in collecting and searching the data, the metadata can be seen, whether it is completed or not. And the questions now is that what about the data that is already in place? Yes, of course, it needs a further effort to complete the metadata. we need to have a forensic activities, yeah, because the data has been collected before the metadata are completed, but it could be from two directions. Yeah, what important thing is that by collecting the data or to produce the data, you need to contact BPS to make sure that the data in the national level, the data could implementing the standard of metadata that has been set by them. But at the same time, so of course, there should be an effort to complete the metadata for the data that has been produced. I think that's all for me, Bapak Krishna. And my apologies. I don't know that my signals are going to be strong because I am queuing on the port right now. Yes, thank you very much, Pandri.
Terima kasih banyak. Semoga lancar perjalanannya.
Yeah, I hope you have a safe trip.
Dari
Yeah,
Lampung.
going back to Jakarta from Lampung. Yeah, so yeah, Pak Irfan Saleh,
Ya. Tadi sudah kita dengar.
hello to you. Okay, we listened to Pak Andri providing us an insight that the policy of one data principles actually try to build a platform that is more integrated with all of the effort that has been done and to make a follow-up from the problems that we have. Yeah, and then Pak Andri said that there is an initiative to develop one data, one of them by addressing or making the metadata, and as well as to see the complexity of problem in developing certain sectors. And what Pa Andri said earlier to us, one of the illustrations about the food security, starting from implementing or identifying the problem, turns out that it's involved many institutions, be it a technical institutions or coordinator institutions. So this is what we need to pay attention for us in managing the data. And yes, there are data that can be built at the beginning, and there are data that is difficult to manage, yeah, because data has been collected before the metadata has been developed. But whoever us to build the integrated data, it is recommended to us or it will be empowered for us to coordinate with the Indonesia statistic to synchronize the statistic principle and as well as from the BIG, yeah, with the special data to have a joint coordinations on how to integrate all of that data to one data Indonesia. Now let's go to the third sessions. Joining with us, Pak Muhammad Irfan Saleh is Mr. Director. Good afternoon. I hope you're okay. You're in Jakarta, right? Yes, good afternoon. Pak Irfan Saleh, he is the Director of Water Resources from the Ministry of Bappenas. He will convey his presentations in relations with the data management to promote IWRM in Indonesia. Yeah, previously talking about the effort to build the platform, now from Pak Irfan, we will listen directly to the context of water resource management. Specifically, how is the data and informations are being managed so that it will be more integrated in order for a policy making process. We have 20 minutes, Bapak, but if you can't, I can only give you 15 minutes so that we have more time for the discussions. I'm going to give the screen to you, Pak Irfan, to convey your presentations. Yes, thank you very much, Pak Krishna, Mr. Moderator, and all of the speaker from national governments and regional governments. May I share my screen, if that's okay? Oh, yeah. Or you can share your screen. Okay, then.
Tadi saya melanjutkan beberapa hal yang sudah
I will
disampaikan.
continue several things that has been conveyed by Mas Andri. Said in Bappenas, we have an initiative to integrate the data so that it could become our reference in order on the planning stage. And I'm going to go directly to several contexts related to the IWRM in Indonesia, how to utilize the data and how to integrate the data. This is the content outline of my presentations. Yeah. In a glance, I'm going to talk about the IWRM and the importance of data availability in the IWRM and the data management implementations for IWRM. Yeah, these concepts actually a concept that has been defined from the beginning in Indonesia. We have been implementing this way before the reformations even, about how to have an integrated water management, yeah? Did the river basins or else? And yeah, several potential for the prosperity of social and economic, and as well as by continuing the sustainability. But this concept in the future will be developed, yeah? And maybe our speaker from Queensland could share the insight that in Australia now, the concept has been further developed to become the integrated water management, not only seeing the water as a resources or economic potential resources, but as well as water as part of our life as a whole. So this concept, it is being developed from time to time. In Indonesian's context, the context of IWRM is become a very important context, yeah? Because the speaker from the governments, yeah, we still have a lot of homeworks in integrated management. And now, how about the new regulations, yeah? The new water resources regulations, and as well as how to integrate the management of water surface and groundwater. And it is a very great challenge for Indonesia. Yeah, so ADB has translated that they are focused to 5 aspects that IWRM focusing on the water utilization efficiency, and then the equality of access toward water, and then after that the balance among user and collaborations among stakeholders, and as well as the utilizations of technology to guarantee the sustainability of these issues. Why in Indonesia this context is very much needed for a comprehensive approach, and yeah, it is translated into our regulations because our development aspect needs to be integrated in the water management in Indonesia. Looking to the future, if we understand this need will very much higher, but then the issues of water scarcity now is raising, specifically in Sumatra and Sulawesi, due to the populations. And then, yeah, in Java Islands, that become a hotspot of water scarcity. And apart from that, we need to see that the water scarcity, it's happened in line with the phenomenon of water resources destructions. So we're facing two dilemmas, yeah? When the water is not available, we cannot utilize that. But when the water comes, we are not able to manage or to control the water or damage that is occurred from that. If flood and drought, yeah? It needs to become our common attentions. Specifically in Java Island, yeah, we're very welcome from our UNS colleague to be able to help us, yeah, for the Bengawan Solo River basins to be able to integrate the management and as well as the resources, because we do realize that Bengawan Solo River basins cross many provincial, and it is very strategic for the development in Indonesia, specifically in Java Islands, because it's very significant from these 3 huge rivers that we have in Java Island, yeah, Bengawan Solo, Berantas, and Citarum. Then for the water productivity, as we can see here, In Indonesia, it has become one of the challenge from the aspect of management because we're still very low of the efficiency in the water resource management. And most of all, yeah, most of this still directed for the irrigations. Then the water productivity in Indonesia will shift it because we need to see the demands of water in the city or in the urban area will be higher. And this is in the context of data management. In the law of water management, from the aspect of resources management, we have 5: the conservations, utilizations, and the controls of damage, planning, and the role of community. And another thing is that the aspect of the information systems of water resources. This is one of the mandate of the law that now become a reference to all of us that in the future, Indonesia needs to improve to be able to manage the data in a water resource management, yeah, because it's going to be the basis of us for the future management. And this is several things that we can further discuss about the aspect that I've mentioned earlier, that IWRM needs the data availability because as we all understand that, yeah, there is the saying in Indonesia, we cannot, and it's something that we cannot measure. And this has become a huge issue for us. One of the challenge on why the city and the district can face huge problems, because one of which is that we are not able to integrate the data or integrated data and the approach that has been conveyed by Mas Andri in One Data Indonesia. Now I'm going to go and explain a little bit about implementations of data management for IWRM. I'm going to flashback a little bit for the data transformations or digital transformation in Indonesia. The data management, like what Mas Andri said earlier from One Data Indonesia, the context is in line with several aspects of digital transformations that we're doing in the national level. Yeah.
Indonesia sudah menerapkan kebijakan e-government.
When Indonesia has established the e-governments, but then we have a principle that we need to realize that the data management in Indonesia, it is also in line with the open government of Indonesia. We can see that this data could be aspect of our transformations in the future. And we are from the government, we have established our ability to provide the access and the infrastructure. And one of the aspects, maybe you know about the e-government, that is, yeah, developed from time to time. Why it is important? Because when we talk about this, about how the data are being produced and collected, but we also need to think that whether the infrastructures of the data management are enough or sufficient, where we can collect the data with the support of infrastructures or a good digital. And the transformations process and digitalizations process, we need to support one another. I'm going to take one of the example infrastructures in the informations has been initiated by the Ministry of Informations, be it in the ministry or agencies, by the times when they're about to do the data management and gathering the data and informations. You don't need to think whether you need to have your own server or we need to have your own data storage or data warehouse, because these facilities in the future will be facilitated and integrated by Cominfo. So yeah, we will divide our responsibility, and then our ability to manage the water resources management. But we don't need to think whether all of this needs to be prepared on the data centers or platform analytic or others. Because for this data, not only the context of data collections, but how to manage this data in sustainable manners. And it needs to be supported by the infrastructures and systems and applications, and as well as other things. Yeah, we need to understand that the platform that has built by UNS, it could utilize several facilities or the facilities from Kominfo. Yeah. I wanted to see in the future that big data yeah. And we are now being exposed in the digital realm. Indonesia is one of the countries that the digital level is very high. And one of the things that is appeared from these digital developments is that many new data that we can utilize. Maybe we do realize that Indonesia is very active on the social media and the sharing informations are very fast. And it could be something or a new source of data that in the future we can use for the decisions making process. And apart from managing the data in a conventional manner and seeing the opportunity to the future, we can start from the water resources, in the digital triplet, as you can see on the slide, integrate physical and digital analytical world. And by the times we are ready to represent the issues or management problems on the ground, in the virtual models. Why it is very important? Because, it needs an interactive simulations that is quite complex. Maybe the next speaker will explain further more about the explanations of future opportunities. But then it is very possible with the technology that we have right now. And this is the example of URM with the modeling of data, spatial, and statistic. We will be able to integrate the physical systems and the virtual system and how we can integrate the analytical process. I'm going to take one of the example, ladies and gentlemen, in Bengawan Solo. About the responsibility, task and responsibility of certain government, in one of the agreements, it can be supported by these digital triplets. And we can implement this in a systematical way in the digital platform that could ease for us to settle about the utilizations of water. And apart from that, we can utilize this type of technology to do the integrated water management. And maybe in the future, our colleague from the research centers will do the early warning systems, for the disaster management, specifically for the hydrometeorological, for floods and landslide. So how to divide the responsibility and tasks when the disaster happened, we can do that effectively. And the last one, another opportunities for us in the national level about the modernizations of irrigation system so that the use of IoT and digitalizations in the agricultural sectors, it is empowered by the government and several initiatives has been carried out in several rivers and provinces. It is a partnership from the national and subnational governments. I'm going to continue. This is last recommendations about how we can integrate the data in these water resources in helping us on decisions making process. I'm going to explain about this furthermore. Yeah. Usually we're talking in technical way about how we can measure the surface of water and then related to the rainfall. And we can integrate this and we can control this. Furthermore, how is this data could be integrated in the other sectors? Yeah, the spatial planning and mapping and the data about the economy and social community that could become the basis of decisions making process. It is our future challenge. Yeah. The initiative that has been established by our colleague in UNS and on the centers to see how is the decisions making process could be integrated in each of the ministries and agencies. I think that's all my last recommendations, and I really hope that this initiative done by our colleague in UNS will be able to utilize, including on decisions making process in managing the water resources. I think that's all. Mr. Moderator, I'm going to give the floor back to you. Thank you very much, Pa Irfan Saleh, yeah, Mr. Directors of Water Resources of Bappenas, for your presentations highlighting the implementations of IWRM. And Pa Irfan also said to us earlier about how the implications toward the needs on managing, yeah, starting from the water availability, water productivity, and so on and so forth. And it needs to be supported by the data and information and integrations. There are several informations that has been conveyed earlier. And yeah, I think that's I can conclude. And now let's go to the next level, to the regional or to the provincial level. What has been done as an effort to continue the initiative in from the national level in the context of water resource management in Bengawan Solo River, and now has been, yeah, talking about this. And now we will invite Bapak Ali Rahmat. He is the head of Department of Integrated Development and Infrastructures of Water Resources in Bengawan Solo River Basins. Pak Ali Rahmat, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Pak Ali Rahmat, he is the head of department, and he is also active in many things related to the water management resources. He is also the head of Eastern region, yeah, for the management of river and coastal area. And yeah, he graduated from the civil engineer from Gajah Mada University. Pak Ali Rahmat, I'm going to give the screen to you now. 15 minutes, sir, to convey your presentations. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, the Honorable, all of the keynote speakers, Pak Irfan. Yeah, it's nice to see you, and Mr. Dean, all of the participants and keynote speakers. Allow me to convey our apology because, yeah, the speaker or Mr. Mariadi Utama, who supposedly attend here, is unable to join with us, yeah? And we are about to talk about and convey about the data in the regional managements of Bengawan Solo River. Allow us to share the screen, please.
Baik. Baik Bapak Ibu sekalian.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, can we go to the next slide? We want to say that maybe you all know one of the longest river and the wider river in Java Islands is Bengawan Solo River. And it is true that Mr. Dean said earlier, we allocated in two provinces in East Java and Central Java, crossing 18 provinces. And then, yeah, from Wonogiri and 19,000 river basins, yeah? We have four main das, Bengawan Solo, Grindulu, and Lorok, and Lambong and Pantura. And yeah, there's flood happened many times, and as well as a very strategic issues right now related to the water resilience, yeah? With the developments of populations around Bengawan Solo River, we are demand to prepare or to build the infrastructures related to addressing the water resilience, yeah? And yeah, next slide, please. Mr. Ministers of Public Works, yeah, like Pak Irfan said earlier, there's a policy in terms of IWRM on addressing this. Mr. Minister, in one of his speech mentions that, yeah, with by the developments of climates and others, yeah, and the populations, it means that we need to have a smart water management by using the technology in place. And now it is being developed then by using the data either from Bengawan Solo or even from the Ministry of Public Works and Housing and the Directorate of Water Resources. From this smart water management, he hoped that the water resource management could be seen through the real-time data that are automatic, yeah, to provide an early warning systems. And then it can be utilized for the decisions making process. And it could become an implementation in terms of water resources that is more planned and more integrated. Next slide, please. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in Bengawan Solo, after we establish information systems, yeah, there has been so many data that we can trade. This data of IWRM that has been established for Bengawan Solo, it is integrated in the website and hydrology of BBWS or bengawansolo.net. This is our hydrology systems. We have a real-time data that you can see. Among other is that the rainfall, we have 66 posts of rainfall throughout the Bengawan Solo River, and then the climatologists in several places, and we have 8 stations of climatologists. And the temporary debit measurement, yeah, we work together with Exxon and Giri Tirta in Gresik. From this, hydrology data in Bengawan Solo, we have a huge benefits, yeah, in terms of mitigating the floods, disaster, early warning systems, and the basis of the decisions making process. And we are using the data to determine the water balance, which now because said yes. So the Director Generals of Water Management, we have the water resource management centers, and all of the data are integrated to WRDC all of the centers in Indonesia collecting the same sense data with the same integrations called WRDC. Yeah, it means that the Director Generals of Water Resources has made the water resource data centers. Yeah, and the data that we input there and which is already validated by the hydrology and the water quality and the data of the reservoir and dam. And we also have the data of asset and irrigations management. Yeah, Irfan also mentioned about this earlier. We are doing the asset irrigations. There is a networking scheme. And yeah, the format has been prepared in HAP and BWG format. And then the report of the inventory survey on the field. Then we have the data that we add in this website and in SIGAP. This is the development of data on the strategic development project. And yeah, it is like a reservoir or water resources. And we also have another layers about the flood pumps and reservoir irrigations. Next slide, please. Like what have been mentioned earlier, that in the Directorate Generals of Water Resources, in this regard, in the national government, we have the SISDA unit, and then we have the water resource data centers for developing the systems. That's become the bank data for all of the infrastructures available throughout Indonesia and built by the Ministry of Public Works and Housing in relation to the water resources management. We are part of WRC, DC. Our data is also open source, yeah? And thank God, the Bengawan Solo data, it is the second rank of the completeness of the data, so that this data could fulfill the requirements of water resource data centers. And then next slide, please. We have developed and we have already established, apart from the physical data, hydrology data, we have developed the data of audiovisual data. And then the data that we develop right now is SIGAP. It can be seen in the joint information system, and you can download it in the Android apps. And you can download it on Play Store. And we do really hope that in the early 2030, we could make the apps available on iOS. The menus are very complete. Yeah, we built the ease of the data. And we've developed the virtual reality or Tour 360. Yeah, if you can allow, we can play it a little bit about how we built the infrastructure, so you can see the Gongsang dams without the needs to be there. Yeah, and we're using the website of virtual reality Tour of 360. We've been established this as well. And next, for the special data, we've made the thematic mapping. Yeah. And the data request is through the Lista or the data service informations in Bengawan Solo. Next slide, please. So another thing that I would like to convey, ladies and gentlemen, we have the joint system informations. In this SIGAP feature, it's quite complete. Yeah, we have the information systems about the river, hydrology, about the flood events, and up until the systems, yeah, that is inside of a phone, yeah, called SIGAP, and it can be downloaded through the App Store. Next slide, please.
Kemudian Bapak Ibu sekalian, kami ingin menyampaikan bagi yang ingin meminta data di SDA saat ini di
And whoever want to request the data in Bengawan Solo, at this moment we have this information service through application in SIGAP and ELISDA.
bagi Bapak Ibu mahasiswa maupun perguruan tinggi yang
For
membutuhkan data tanpa harus
college student who need the data without coming to our office, you may request the data through and then this information through this application.
Bapak Ibu sekalian, ini
So distinguished participant, we also want to share the information. Should like we've been asked to become the part of this data integration, this is a must be clear regarding of the MOU in between the office or agency. And now it will be the region from SDA. So we have this WRDC. And then it will be coordinated based on our experience. We've ever been asked the open source regarding of the data, but there's some misusing of those data. So that's why how we appoint. And we also have this validation and verification of the data, because it is mentioned by Satu Data team and from Bappenas. The validation that are being mentioned, is it going to be a thematic map, or how are the statistics, and also have the data. And then one of the challenge that is true of the budgeting in Alista. So the development that we've conduct will be gradually. And to answer to those challenges, yes, we need a support from all the stakeholders regarding of this MOU. It is answered by a ministry with the smart water management, that we must give a smart data and completed data to answer the existing condition, and also related with the ample budgeting regarding of the verification and also data validation. I think that's all that we can say regarding of the data. Apologize should there is any lag from our side. Peace be upon us all. I will give it back to moderator. Thank you very much, Pak Ali Rahmat, for the presentation that already give a description, the good practice of this smart water management, or to implement the mandate from the integrated water resource management to support this managing of the water resource that is more integrated. Yes, the challenge is quite big. Why? Because it is mentioned that Bengawan Solo will reach 600 kilometers. It is like from Sydney to Canberra. So the challenge is quite huge, because there's many regions to consolidate. We already got the description from the challenge, problem, the Satu Data platform. And it is also mentioned initiatives from a central government, a regional government, on how to integrate this data to support this IWRM. And now we will listen to a presentation from our guest practitioner and also guest professors. And we are really excited that get the chance to invite Professor Yong Ping Wei and also Dr. Frederick Bokert. Good morning to you, Professor, and also Dr. Frederick. Good morning, good afternoon to you.
Thank you. It's evening here, but
Professor Yong Ping Wei can hear our voice.
Sorry, can I share my slides?
Yeah.
So can I share my slides?
Yes,
please?
of course you can. You can share your screen by
sorry,
yourself.
so
Yeah.
is this
Yeah.
no,
Professor
sorry,
Yongping, can you hear my voice?
No, sorry. No. Can you, so do you have my slides? Sorry, I couldn't share my slide. Do you have my slides?
Yeah. We have your slide. If you want us to share your
Yeah,
screen,
please.
we can do
So
it from
you
here. Okay.
share, can you please share with me? I
Yeah.
don't know why my computer doesn't work now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before starting your presentations, please allow me to introduce Professor Yongping Wei.
Yeah.
Professor Yongping Wei is professor in School of Earth and Environmental Science, the Universities of Queensland. And she has been working nearly 15 years in academic research. And then the research interest is to unfold the complexities of human-water relationships for improving the effectiveness, adaptivity, and predictability of water resource engineering and management. Over 115 journal papers and cited in Google in socio-hydrology, and then water governance and water resource management. Over 40 grants of equal to $10 million, including 7 ARC projects, I'm sorry, as the first CI or sole CI, and then supervisions of PhD students, almost 21 students, and lecturing over 10 courses, and won the most effective teacher at the University of Queensland, and the first class teaching innovations award from the Tsinghua through the Melbourne Tsinghua joint course partnership. And she is also a member of the leadership team of PANTARE, Everything Flows, Change in Hydrology and Society, International Associations of Hydrological Science Scientific Decade 2013 to 2022. And finally, she is also a deputy head of school and chair of School of Engagement Committee at the Universities of Queensland. So Professor Yongping Wei, I think you can hear my voice, and we have 15 minutes for you to present or to share your materials, and we will be assisting you from here. Now our team is preparing to share your screen, and once the share is presented, we will let you start your presentation. Please allow me to check the team to start share screen.
Thank you.
Sudah bilang mau dibantu.
Thanks, Lingtang. Yeah. All right. Do you don't think you need any translation, or I just talk to English? That's fine.
Talk in English because our interpreter will translate it to Indonesia, I suppose. Yeah. So you can.
I just keep talking English. Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, please, Professor Yongping.
Yeah. All right. Let me start. Yeah, it's my great honor to talk to you, talk to everybody here, because I was a river basin manager, water resource manager before I become university academics. So I'm quite happy to talk to my colleagues, all of you, because I was one of you before I become professor. So, all right, so my topic today is a little bit different than three colleagues we talked before. So my topic about is how research can support the water resource management decision making. Particularly, I'd like to talk to is what data are required for integrated water resource management. So next slide, please. Yeah, the answer is very simple. It depends on what issues you have in your river basin, and it depends who you are. If I have a problem, what shortage? If I have problem flooding, if I have problem for food security, or if I have a problem for environmental degradation or climate change. That depends on what kind of question you want to answer. Also depends who you are. I'm a hydrologist. Okay, I tell you how you can do the water balance, where what should go, where what should come from. Oh, I'm an ecologist. I always tell you, okay, I need this water for my tree. I need this water for my plants. If I'm an economist, I will say, okay, if you don't give me this water, my agricultural production will lose so much dollars. If I'm the public or I'm a medium, I will say, oh, I don't like this. I want that. This is my opinion. If I am a technologist, I'll say, okay, I can develop this technology to help you. Or if I'm a water policy makes, no, don't worry anything. I can change the regulation, makes the river basin management happens, works. So all depends what question you have or who you are. So next slide, please. So I like to use this small catchment as example to tell my experience. So this small catchment, I read a couple of colleagues' slides, is the same size as our solar. That's a catchment. So it's 821 kilometers long. Its area is 130,000 square meters. So it's located in northwest China. So the catchment is very complex because in the upstream it's located in Tibet, and the rainfall is 500 millimeters, and the land use is like forest, major is forest. But move to the middle stream, rainfall only going to 100 to 250 millimeters per year, and most of them is crop production, is agriculture. Move to downstairs, it's a desert. Probably you couldn't imagine in desert because Indonesia is so wet, so don't need the desert. So the water is only 50 millimeters per year. It's only desert and terminal lake. So in such area, fortunately or unfortunately, they have 2,000 years water resource management, mainly for how I can divert water for agriculture production. That's that. Recent years, all the terminal lake disappear, all the environmental degradation come. So government wanted to make the water reallocation to give some water to environment back, which originally belongs to environment. Now he want to make some part of work to back the environment. Seems very simple, but very difficult. Very difficult. So all of my research about tell why do the water reallocation decision maker so difficult. Thank you. Next slide. Thank you. Next, please. Now, I think I have one more before this.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to find your previous slide first. Yeah, there is a problem with screen sharing, so
That's quite important. One slide missed. Sorry.
let me share it once again to make sure that the slide is still there.
Probably slide number 4. Yeah. The fourth
Yeah.
slide. Yeah.
There is a problem with screen sharing for a while. Apologize for the inconvenience. Please allow me to fix the problem first.
Oh, I understand. Yeah.
Had a blackout earlier, so a few devices were switched off, and we tried to reconnect to the internet at the moment. Professor Yongping, is it this one that you mentioned earlier, the slide number 4?
Now I have to say it's dark here. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Sorry. I haven't seen any slides now.
There is a small problem in sharing your slide at the moment. Now our team is trying to fix
I sent the Ratri, the PDF version too, just in case the slides don't work. I send the Ratri PDF version. Yeah.
Yeah. I will try to ask Patri first. Sorry, everyone. We are trying to solve the problem at the moment. We just have Really sorry, Professor Yongping, can you
Yeah.
hear my voice?
Sorry.
Yeah, can you hear my voice and can you see the presentation?
Yeah, that's perfect. This is really important one. I don't want to miss this one. Perfect. Thank
Sure,
you.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, really sorry about that for all participants. Yeah, you can continue, Professor Yongping.
Thank you. Because like why I choose this river basin, since I got my PhD in Melbourne University, it's 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I worked on this catchment for over 10 years. Since I was a young girl, now I'm a professor. So all my effort is in this catchment. So you can say I published over 40 papers. The last final one only come up 2 weeks ago. So I supervise over 6 PhD students in this area and got lots of funding. Thank you for the funding. So what I did is to try to unfold the water reallocation in this river basin, why it's so difficult. So I asked these 6 questions. The first question is a hydrological question. How has the catchment water balance between human use and environmental use has been changed in the past 2,000 years? Second question is about how has the change in water allocation impact in ecological system? It's a question for ecologists. Third question is what's the trade-off between agricultural development and in the middle stream and ecological degradation in downstream? This is about for economists. I'm an agricultural economist. That's a question. Fourth question is how has the society value on water changed over the years? That's about, I'm a social scientist. I want a contribution to the water resource management. Hey, what's my role? So the fifth question is, has water policy X has been changed? That's about you guys. Just I'm a water policy maker. I can change water policy. Then I can improve water resource management. Last one, if I'm a technologist, how I can contribution to resource management. So I have these 6 questions. Luckily I have 6 PhD students to finish this project. So I would, next slide, please. I just want from the data perspective, which kind of data to support these research questions. So this one is hydrological problems, how I can do the water balance. If I wanted to do in recent years, whatever I can do, what balance everybody knows, I need to know precipitation or rainfall. I need to know stream flow. I need to know evapotranspiration. Definitely we need these 3 type of data if I want to address hydrological research questions. So in the recent years, of course, you can use instrumental data. Okay, we have a rainfall station here. We have stream flow station there. And I have remote sensing data. Now, if I said what happened in 2,000 years ago, you definitely don't have this data. You need the kind of data to do reconstruction. So I use the train rain data. I use ice core data too. Then I use it's a lake deposit data to check what are reconstruction, what the balance right or not. So in the bottom finger shows that's what are reconstruction hydrology in the past 2,000 years. You can see all human-related indicators is going up in the very recent years. All the natural water use going down. So that means that's address the question how the catchment water balance between human use and the environmental use has been changed. You can see some are up and some are down. All right, next please. So this question is about ecologists. They want to tell how the change in water allocation impact the catchment ecological systems. So the very first, a very left finger shows are because I changed water allocation. So it goes middle stream in the black one, middle stream water is going up, and the red one downstream water is going less, because I want to develop the agriculture production. So I give more water in agriculture use. Definitely downstream's water has been less. So the middle path is just to show if the water allocation to the downstream is reduced, how that impact the lake size and the riverine natural vegetations. That's all the remote sensing data for the NDVI data, or remote sensor in the middle, and in the left side is traditional hydrology data. So it's ecological data is always from NDVI data or from remote sensing, but water data, hydraulic data from the instrumental data. All right, next slides, please. Bit of a move down, that's all. Yeah.
I think the slide is consists of 6 slides, Professor Yongping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you move down? Now it's question 2. I have a question 3. Yeah.
Well, let me check first to our team.
No, I have 12 slides. This 6 slides is first part. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have the second part?
Oh, already gave Ratri. This first part, the second part, the whole data and the PDF in the very early morning. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Professor Yongping, according to Ratri, she said she just received only the slide consists of 6 slides.
The PDF version I sent to her too. Sorry. Yeah. I'm happy to stop now. If no slides, I'm happy to stop now. I just take questions later. I don't want to waste everybody's time. Yeah. I'm happy to stop now. Yeah.
Okay, for now. I'm sorry about that. I think that is now for Professor Yongping, and now we have to continue to Dr. Frederick Burkhardt. Good evening. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening.
Okay, perfect. So now stage is yours for another 15 minutes. Would you like to share your screen by yourself, or?
Sure. Yes, I will try to do that first.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a minute, please. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, not yet.
Is it visible now?
No, still black.
Oh,
I think
okay.
Still in the process of start screen.
It says I'm screen sharing now, but
yeah, it's okay now.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I will talk to you a little bit about data integration for management of the Murray-Darling Basin, the processes that are involved in all of this, and the governance frameworks. So, I have to first tell you a little bit about the history of water reform in Australia. As you may know, Australia consists of several states, and normally the states, which is like the provinces in Indonesia, they have full responsibility for water management and management of natural resources. But in the case of the Murray-Darling Basin, they always had to collaborate together because the Murray-Darling itself divides the state of Victoria and the state of New South Wales, and also provides water for South Australia at the end. So always there was a need for collaboration. In the past, they've always done that following a consensus model, which basically means that they sat around the table and worked out solutions together. But since the 1990s, it became evident that there was serious problems with water over allocation for agriculture, and water had to be returned to the environment. So in 1995, the cap on diversions was first installed, meaning that whatever was used then for water allocations was the maximum that could be used and no more. Then a little bit later, in 2004, there was the National Water Initiative, which was something that all the states agreed to, not only the states from the Murray-Darling Basin, but across the whole of Australia, for better collaboration on water management. So this was a voluntary agreement everybody went into, and it basically set out a lot of things about water entitlements, water planning, support for environmental outcomes, returning over allocation systems, markets, accounting, and so on. Of course, the states voluntarily agreed to go ahead with the National Water Initiative, but that didn't necessarily mean that they were actually complying and actually following up on their promises, which basically meant that in 2007, the federal government stepped in and they basically, so this was the National Water Initiative that basically was voluntarily agreed to, but then essentially the federal government had to step in and they created the Water Act in 2007. That basically gave the federal government powers to start directing the other states for how water management should be done in the Murray-Darling Basin. So the Water Act was specifying that it had jurisdiction over collection of hold, manage, and water information. It required water resource reports to be delivered from the states. It enabled forecasts of future water resource availability, created the National Water Accounts and the National Water Information Standards, advice and investigations. So what brought this on? It was basically the Millennium Drought, which started in 1997 and went for more than 10 years. And people really started to panic about so little water available in the Murray-Darling Basin, which is basically in the southwest corner of Australia. And you can see from all the red on the left-hand side how bad it was. This is the rainfall deciles from January 2002 till 2006, which was probably the worst year in the drought. But you can also see on the right-hand side the storage levels of the different states and how low they were in terms of percentage capacity. So in the Murray-Darling Basin, it was below 20%. In Brisbane, Perth, Melbourne, and Sydney, all very, very low storage levels. So there was lack of water information, and some seemingly simple questions couldn't be answered in 2006. For example, how much water is available, allocated, used, traded between users, or lost? How is the changing climate impacting our rivers and aquifers? How is the rate and pattern of water use changing? And what is the water availability outlook in the following year or something like that? So then they decided to, in the Water Act, to give that task to the Bureau of Meteorology. Why the Bureau? because they were the only agency that could combine weather, climate, and water expertise. They were an independent agency from the government, authoritative, and provided transparent information, like all the weather forecasts, precipitation, and so on. They had a very high level of data integration, analysis, and forecasting capacity, and also proven capacity to operationalize research and deliver environmental intelligence. You can see here on this map how much information they were able to provide. All the black bits there is where they have weather stations and where data is being collected. So they supply data in 11 categories, 200 entities, 10 categories of water information, entire historical archives they had, and this was updated in real time, daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly. And to date, they have over 42 million files, 15,000 files are added every day, and over 4 billion observations, and also from over 850,000 groundwater bores. So what information does the Bureau collect? They have time series data on water course, level and flows, on groundwater, on dam storage, on meteorological observations, water quality, surface water, and some groundwater, and flood warning data as well. They also have information on urban water use, on surface water take and groundwater extractions, rights, allocations, and trades, on the urban water supply, wastewater, recycled and stormwater, and water restriction announcements. And then they have other groundwater information, aquifer boundaries and properties, geological and hydrogeologic units, bore locations, and so on. So the data integration functions of the Bureau are basically that they are a central depository for collecting hydrological data from the state governments. This is coupled with the national meteorological data collected for weather forecasting, so field measurements, remote sensing, modeling, and forecasting. And they have the capacity to measure, collate, process, and package the data for a variety of users based on user demands. And the Murray-Darling Basin Authority is a major data user, but there are others such as the Department of Environment and Water, the Commonwealth of Environmental Water Holder, and so on. So user demands basically includes productivity for agriculture, disaster management for storms, floods, droughts, pollution, spills, and so on. They do condition reporting. They provide data for research and advocacy as well. So there are a number of different functions across agencies in Australia. I mentioned the Bureau of Meteorology. There's the Department of Change, Energy, the Environment and Water. Then there is the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, the Commonwealth Environmental Water Office, and the Office of the Inspector General of Water Compliance. So basically the dotted arrows indicate here information flows. So all the states, for example, in the Murray-Darling Basin, Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, and South Australia provide data, and they are required by law to the Bureau of Meteorology. And of course, the Bureau then provides analyzed and packaged data back to the Murray-Darling Basin Authority and other government agencies. So you can see that there are also other communication lines happening. The states have to report on their environmental water use to the Murray-Darling Basin Authority. They have to work together with the Commonwealth Environmental Water Office for planning of release of environmental water. And they have to report to the Office of the Inspector General of Water Compliance for how the water was used and if all the rules have been followed. But all these networks are basically just things that are easy to replicate once you have installed it in a vertical way, you can basically expand it across all the users. So what are the data sources for the Murray-Darling Basin Authority? All the surface water-related data from real-time to aggregated daily, weekly, monthly, annually, precipitation, evapotranspiration, surface runoff, storm and flood forecasting, and groundwater. That's all coming from the Bureau of Meteorology. Then they have hydrology modeling and environmental watering, which is basically a state-based hydrology models and ecological asset-based models. Then they also have a need for water on groundwater aquifers, land, rivers and wetlands, spatial information, which is provided by Geoscience Australia, which is another federal government agency, which basically has got what they call the data cube and the supercomputer, which allows data from satellites to be all integrated into real-time databases. And this supercomputer can be queried for all sorts of queries that people might have, such as, for example, how much water was delivered to a particular wetland that is an ecological asset. So they also have data for ecological research, which comes from other sources, from the CSIRO, from universities, the collaborative research centers, and state-based agencies. So the data uses and functionalities for modeling, evaluation, and reporting for the authority are for river operations. They basically run the river Murray for water storage, release, and flow management. So the sustainable diversion limits recovery scenarios, which is basically trying to make sure that all the water accounting for sustainable recovery is correct. The buybacks, the water trading, also for ecological requirements, like particular flood inundation, flows for fish, bird breeding events, flushing, and so on. For ecological condition monitoring, and also for the state water management asset detailed models, they need the data, but that's often reported by the states. But there are some flood inundation models at smaller spatial scales that are used for that. And then data for calibration runs of their hydrological models and water metering. So the wonderful world of hydrology modeling. Before we had the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, each of the states had their own hydrology models, and they slightly worked in different ways. So when we moved to implement the basin plan according to the Water Act, there was a need to develop a hydrology model that would integrate all of these state models. So that basically happened. There was a transition between use of the state models and then models validation. And ultimately, a model was developed, which is called SOURCE, which integrates all the other models. And that model is actually also now used sometimes for international knowledge transfer and applied in other parts of countries in Southeast Asia. So what is this SOURCE model? It's a decision support model for water system planning and operations. It represents the whole catchment and river system and can include complex policy and operational rules. It can basically tell you things about water quantity and quality. You can run modeling about ecosystem health on it, the reservoirs and water use. You can use it for urban and rural catchments and for demand and supply. So the SOURCE applications, water balance studies can be done with it, from catchment to river basin scales, river operations, including the daily decisions and planning for the coming months. It's used for water resource plans. These are the plans that the states have to submit to the authority for allocation priorities, sharing arrangements, use rules, and so on. It's used for comparing different management options and scenarios, including climate change projections, For water quality analysis, also based on catchment land use scenarios, also for urban water system planning, operation and optimization, including different supply options, and for water infrastructure planning. Another important player here is the CSIRO Land and Water. They basically do studies on water security, and their key impact areas are on integrated water assessments for Northern Australia, the Murray-Darling Basin, mining and water, flood recovery and resilience, and international water. These are projects funded by the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So basically, they also play a role in securing Australia's water resources to basically do studies on water infrastructure, on water quality and water and ecosystems. So the Basin Plan has some ecological objectives, intermediate outcomes and for end of plan outcomes. And for each of those, they relate to ecosystem assets and ecosystem functions. And for each of them, there are particular indicators. And of course, you have smaller nested spatial and temporal scales, which integrate over time and over space in the longer plans, 5-yearly and longer plans. And of course, to actually achieve those objectives, it's very important to have accurate hydrology models that can inform the ecological requirements. Just want to finish off with a couple of key commitments from the new government in Australia. So they want to establish a National Water Commission. The National Water Commission used to exist in 2004, but was over time abolished, and its responsibilities taken over by the Productivity Commission. But they recognize now that it's important to have a separate commission dealing with water. They want to broaden the national water grid investment policy and deliver a 5-point plan to safeguard the Murray-Darling Basin, deliver on water commitments, increasing the compliance and improve metering and monitoring. They want to restore transparency, integrity, and confidence in water markets and management, and increasing the First Nations ownership and involvement in decision-making, and updating the science. And finally, they want to invest in the restoration also of urban rivers and catchments. Part of these commitments also include reinstating the Sustainable Rivers Audit, which was an independent condition monitoring program for the Murray-Darling Basin, and reinstating the native fish strategy, which was a long-term integrated recovery strategy for native fish. So what I want to finish up on then is some suggested considerations for Indonesia. Emerging from this talk, I think the first important point is legislative underpinning. You have to ensure that decision-making power can be enforced and that it's transparent and well communicated. Then, of course, the issue of data needs and required functions. There are some generic data needs, of course, and there are specific objectives. In Australia, the specific objectives might relate to particular wetlands and so on, for which particular data are required, and the generic ones are system-wide ones. Then, of course, there is the issue about data providers versus data users. Who are the big players? And also, what are the critical data that are absolutely necessary versus those that are nice to have? An important consideration, of course, is data housing, validation and dissemination, the logistics and technical capacity that's required and available or not, resource funding according to the most logical existing capacity for receiving, processing, standardizing, and distribution. And then the value of historical data is important, the gaps therein and continuation of collecting them or not. Which data need to be centralized, which data are site-specific. And an important principle that's been used a lot in Australia is collect once and use often. So basically, data are made available publicly through Creative Commons, and it's shared with everyone. So research organizations, individuals, universities, everyone can use the data that are made available by the government. And finally, maybe to set up such a system, it might be a good idea to start with a pilot project. And from what I've heard, the Bengawan River Basin is well on its way to provide that kind of integrated system that's there. So thank you for your attention. And I will now stop sharing my screen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Frederick. Actually, thank you very much for Professor Yong Ping Wei and Dr. Frederick Wilfred for your presentations. I will apologize for Professor Yong Ping that the first presentation was in problem because we had a blackout and we had some technical issues. But we continue to Dr. Frederick, and he mentioned and explained a lot about how the process of managing river basin can be promoted through the process of national water management through the process of an integrated national water initiative. There was a sequence. He mentions about the National Water Initiative in 2004, and then Water Act 2007, and then the process of providing technical support to develop the Meteorology Bureau with the process and techniques on data collection, and finally it helps them to provide a sort of MDBA data with complex surface water data, hydrology modeling, groundwater aquifers, and so on. And this will help the process of achieving a more integrated practice for water resource management. Thank you, Dr. Frederick, for the last presentations. Allow me to switch my language to Bahasa, and the translator will let translating the.
And also a special that involve many of our stakeholders, and then we also take note that from a Wonogiri representative, it is explained that the problem is not just technical only, but to make sure the capacity of the problem or the challenge or the issues could be relevant with our existing or available resource. The problem is every region, they must face their own problems. And this is the proof that the data integration in national or central government, like been mentioned by Pak Andri. Yes, there's already integrated this data, and then from satu data, they are trying to build this standard of the data up until the special data. Pak Ali Rahmat also mentioned that the practice already been done. One among others is develop a database that developed through online platform, like been mentioned, to mitigate the flood, and then to support this early warning system, and as a base to make the policy regarding of this clean water management as well. This platform could be accessed through internet, and been explained that it needs to be improved the quality and also coordinate, especially regarding of the updating the data and also the dissemination. It is mentioned by Dr. Yong Ping and Dr. Frederick, been explained in two study cases. It is very complex that the node is using of this data must be altogether or a commitment from all the stakeholders to make sure that these both have the same understanding in the same frequency and also the same capacity. Thus, in this session, it is to support our research, and it will be directed to balance what we take note on today. So we have about 15 to 20 minutes. So the question might be addressed to the source person. Hopefully that all the source persons are still joining, except for Pak Andri that are still on his way, but hopefully he is still also listening. So permission, I will read two questions first that I can see on our chat box. The first one from Bapak Eko Sulis, IPB University, to Dr. Frederick. So Pak Eko Sulistiono,
Dr. Frederick, the questions are: what are the water quality problem in Australia and how to monitor water quality from time to time? Thank you very much. So this is the first questions. I think we will do like a question and answer on one by one. So would you please respond, Dr. Frederick?
Yes, thank you for the question. There are a couple of different water quality issues in the Murray-Darling Basin. The most important one to mention is salinity. So with land clearing in big parts of the Murray-Darling Basin, we have had a change in the water balance in the sense that groundwater started becoming elevated levels. So it came up from much below. And in the process of rising, it basically dislodged some salts that were in the soil profile, meaning that the water, where there was previously there were woodlands and now crop areas, the groundwater level was much higher than before. And the groundwater level started turning saline, making large parts of the basin less suitable or even not suitable at all anymore for agriculture. So that was a big problem that started emerging in the 70s and the 80s. And they, in response, the Murray-Darling Basin Authority Commission at that time started developing the Water Quality Management and Salinity program. And they basically established a particular point on the Murray-Darling Basin where water quality was measured regularly, in fact, salinity, to make sure that the water quality was still acceptable for drink water purposes for Adelaide in South Australia. And then they also set up a number of salinity points where the water was, where groundwater was actually captured and where salinity was where the water was basically managed to reduce its salinity along the river stream, further upstream. That was one big point. And that water, that was a joint program between all the states and was very successful, started before the basin plan already, and has been continuing now and is going until 2030. So it actually manages to harvest some of the salt in the basin, and that is then sold as a commercial product, River Murray salt, and it also reduces the salinity of the water in the rivers. Another strategy that I've been employing for that is, if the water salinity levels build up too much, they try and flush the saline water out into the ocean. So then basically from further upstream, they release some environmental water flows, and that water is specifically destined to carry all the saline water with it and dilute it and flush it out to the ocean. So that's one of the big problems. Another big problem with water quality in the Murray-Darling Basin is blue-green algal blooms. This results if there is a lot of drought and the water quantity and the volumes are reduced a lot. And you might get pools of stagnant water in the basin. And that basically then, with the rise of temperature, and with nutrient runoffs from agriculture might result in algal blooms. These blue-green algal blooms are very toxic, and they can basically affect the fish living in the rivers. They can also affect cattle who are drinking on the farms. And they're basically not good for humans either. So that is another problem, but they are usually blooms that don't last very long, and they happen over summertime. And when these blooms happen, there's not a lot they can do about it other than issue warnings to farmers and water users that this water is unsuitable for certain purposes. And then another water quality issue is what's called black water events. We've had some of those happening recently. What's happening with black water events is that there is a lot of flooding happening, and the water spills over the banks and ends up in the wetlands, which is a good thing for the wetlands. But when the water returns to the river channel, it carries with it a lot of organic material from the land, and that organic material ends up in the river channels. And suddenly, when that's broken down by bacteria, it reduces the level of oxygen in the water profile, in the water column. And that in turn then affects the fish, who are suddenly dying because of lack of oxygen and cause a lot of big fish kills. That's also mainly localized events, but now recently we've had a lot of flooding in the Murray River channel over large stretches, and it's been happening in many different parts of the Murray River where fish have been affected by this problem. And finally, there's a water quality problem that emerged during the Millennium Drought, which is when the rivers were so dry that some of the lakes at the end of the system, Lake Albert and Lake Alexandrina, the levels were so low that some of the anoxic soils were exposed to oxygen, because which were normally underwater, and that then triggers a chemical reaction which makes those soils very, very toxic as well. So in that case, it's important to make sure that the water levels in those lakes never go below a certain level.
Thank you, Dr. Frederick, for your answer. Pak Eko, would you like to ask a following up question, or is it enough? Well, okay, I think that is all for questions from Pak Eko. We move to the second questions. Let me check the meeting chat. There is another question now from Paramita, our researcher from Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Universitas 11 Maret. And the question is addressed to Professor Yongping. Professor Yongping, are you still here? Okay, whilst we are waiting for Professor Yongping, I think we can move to the third questions first. Yeah, the third question is for Frederick from Rararatri, a lecturer from Planning Department at Universitas 11 Maret. And the question is that as MDB is across two states, are there problems in coordinations or conflicts that happen between those two states, and how these two states can be synergized and to be harmonized by the process?
Yes, thank you for the question. This is actually something which I have delivered a number of lectures on earlier this year for the university. It is actually a very complex question. I mean, it seems simple, but it's not just two states. It's actually New South Wales and Victoria in the first place, because they share the border with the Murray River, but it's also South Australia, which has got an agreement for a certain amount of water that needs to reach them. and it's also the state of Queensland, which is the upper part of the basin, and then also the Australian Capital Territory, which sits inside New South Wales. This is something that has been going on for a long, long time, since the beginning of last century. And the states had to have long discussions about how they best share the water, because every state had their own state agenda, and the upstream states were not very keen to leave much water for the downstream state of South Australia. But the federal government then looked after the interests of the downstream state. At the moment, the situation is that under the Basin Water Act, if the states cannot come to an agreement, the federal government can step in and make a decision in the best interests of the whole river basin. So basically, they can say, no, we need water, enough water reaching the River Murray mouth. And sorry, New South Wales, sorry, Victoria, it just means that you will get less water allocations, or you have to give more water for further downstream. That's the answer in short, but it's a very complex issue. And I would encourage you to have a look at those lectures which have been recorded. I'll just try to think of the name of the course for which I have provided those lectures. Just a minute.
Thank you again, Frederick, for the answer.
This was for the course Water Resources Engineering.
Yeah, thank you. And then I should check for another. Okay, Professor Yongping.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So yeah, there is a question from Paramita. I think in your sessions before the blackout, you mentioned about the challenge of managing societal values in terms of to be connected to the physical data. So she asked a questions about any efficient way or any solutions to integrate social data and physical data, because she anticipate your explanations in your presentations that societal value is really influence physical conditions, yet it is also a kind of a bit challenging data to be presented. So please, Professor Yongping, to answer the questions.
So that's a bit of a disappointment. That's my really important part. I never have a chance to talk. So I have a different variety of social data. That's like colleagues talk is machine learning or medium big data. That will be the one of the key part of the data in the water resource management, because you need to know different stakeholders' value, you need to know different policy, you need to know different technological science. So my last 10 years, what I have done, I use the ways called transformative ways to change all the quantitative data to the quantitative data. So if you all the media data, everything into the quantitative data, just like a hydraulic data is rainfall and stream flow, then you can integrate all this together. So that's my current paper. It was published 2 months ago. I just want to share my final slides, how I can integrate all this data together to tell water resource manager how they can integrate all the data to address their issues. If I have flooding issue, you have a climate change issue, you have the food production issue, how I can use the different data, how I integrate them to support the decision maker. That's my slide shows, but unfortunately that was not there. But I'm happy to send the slides. You guys can have a bit of read. If you have interest, just send me email. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you, Professor Yongping. But before I switch to the second questions, I would like to invite you to share some perhaps like suggestions or recommendations for the current states of Indonesians' effort to integrate their data in the process of promoting a more integrated water resource management. Would you share your opinion about some sort of suggestions for Indonesian government to make it easy or effective?
Sorry, I should be modest because I've never been there. I've been so many countries, but I've never been there. I'm looking forward to go see the catchment there. Physically, I can see what they are, where they are, how the problem is. But anyway, I'm really enjoyed the 3 talks before me from different levels. I see the structure is fantastic, and they have to try to address different things. Structure, you know, the platform, different layers, different data, all the structure clearly, really good there. Probably 2 more things just to see, you know, we have this structure, we have this platform, we have this data, that's so what? So how we can use that to support our decision making. So wonderful colleagues, is fantastic to see that, but I have to clearly, this is my 5 years planning for water resource management. Okay, that's my goal. Then that's the data is here. How I can use the current data structure and the data to support that 5 years plan. I think that's a bit of a gap there. The other things, of course, we need the social data. All the biofixed data, how many dams we have, how many canals we have. I saw lots of the data is fantastic, but we need integrated social data there, you know, to tell in what social context, how we can make the decision. Let's make the stakeholders happy. You know, with 5 years plan easily to implement it, no strong against from stakeholders. So that's two point. I think could do better, but already good enough, I think. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Professor Yongping. That will be thoughtful considerations for us. Ini kemudian ada pertanyaan sebelum kembali.
Then after this, we have a question before we go back to Professor Yongping. The question from Pak Tendra Istanabi, the lecturer from UNS, and then the question to Pak Ali Rahmat from is it the data system that are built by BBWS also cover this social data? Because this social and physical data like the currency that cannot be separated in the interpretation of other data as the decision are making based. So at this moment or currently regarding of the information system that are developed in Bengawan Solo, regarding with this social data, it's still under development. Why? That this social data that's still on our writing that we are not yet provided in information system. But again, talk about this single data that can be used as a basis of a decision making. It is not yet provided in information system. So a little question from or a follow-up question. Actually, once the research are conducted, we can get the impression that there is a duplication or in this data social collected from the civic office or other technical office. Then this just from other civics or other housing the people, and sometimes we have this overlapping data. What how from your office overcome and use the most accurate data available? And regarding on that, in a policy or our research study, we usually use the most updated data. We compare the data. For example, for the decision making of this infrastructure building, so we have the unit pricing. We are using the most updated from subnational government. So we are trying to get the most updated data and use that. Noted. Thank you, Pak Ali Rahmat. Pak Kendra Istana.
Perhaps at the local level, national level, or there is another agency that works on supplying that sort of regulations, Professor Yongping?
Great questions. So Indonesia, China, like Indonesia, I heard from Ratu anyway. So every country have a 5 years plan. In this 5 years plan, the national level will give you the guideline, how much water should be given environment, how much water should be given given the human needs. So that's the guideline from national level. Then in your catchment, you have to apply this regulation or guideline in your catchment. So in your catchment is very different. Probably you have to look at the different human needs, different environment assets. So you can apply for the national regulation in your catchment. Then in your catchment, what your catchment have not final decision, you apply for that guideline in your catchment, you make your plan. This plan should be approved by national level. Okay, that's fine. It's normally that then the local catchment, they will do their operation dam, do their everything to allocate water from different sectors. But it's missed one thing from the stakeholders. Some people, no, I don't like water going to the environment. So that's why we need social research to support, say, this kind of water allocation never works because people don't like this water allocation. I'm not sure I addressed the question. Actually it's from national to local, but need whether it's successful or not need be approved or be be happy with the different stakeholders.
Okay, thank you, Professor Yongping.
Can I just add an Australian perspective?
Of course, Frederick, please, yes.
So in Australia, under the Basin Plan, there is also a 5-yearly water resource plans that basically request the states to put together a plan for their catchments within the river basin. And they have to account for all water users, environmental water use, and other agricultural use and so on. But essentially, if they can if they stay within the allocated amount that's been given by the authority, they have the power to decide how much they want to use for particular environment but they have to report back on it to the authority. So it's similar. Basically the plans that the states submit to the authority, they have to be endorsed by the authority because they have to address the problem of over-allocation of water.
Thank you, Frederick. I think I'm going to switch to bahasa again. Thank you. Satu pertanyaan.
So one question from my side. It is just across in my mind from many things that have been mentioned and presented. The most important in Indonesian context on how to make sure the management it is defined properly. So all the stakeholders have a good understanding on what are their role or the portion that they can take. This is usually become the challenge to integrate this data and information. So maybe from Bappenas, a representative still joining us. If not, I would like to invite Pak Hari Adi from Pusdataru or from others. Pak Hari Adi, or later we can hear from Pak Ali Rahmat as well. I've overheard from Pak Ali Rahmat. This is just like the agreement to mapping that relation. Yes, thank you very much, Pak Krishna. So actually, what we've been mentioned, the data standardization. But I think on how we start with our existing data, it could be a stimulus. What is actually, or we still have a different data with our existing data, it's still any lag, or how we make adjustment on those data. So actually, we already have data. Then we need to study or learn this data. Do we need to conduct the integration of this data? How we conduct the standardization, or the combination from physical and social data? So conceptual, yes, we need to discuss, but then we must keep on going with the action as well. And how to spot the main challenge, the main issue. I believe that we can spot a lot of lack or the minus from our ongoing system. Why? Because we tend to just what are the data that we need and the data that we use. Also, it's depend on our office. Pak Ali Rahmat, any addition? Yes, related with this data integration, there is several things that we can conduct regarding these things to integrate it in one application, or the interaction in between a user. What we mean by a user is all the stakeholders in this data integration. We must put like a general guidance regarding on what are to be adding, the coding, the naming, and so regarding of the data that can be shared in this data integration. Thank you. Thank you very much, Pak Ali. I can see Pak Sujono still thinking. Any addition, Pak Sujono? So listening to all the presentation, we think that yes, there's a lot of that need to amend, especially regarding data on our side. In Pusdataru in Central Java, maybe we all
dari Bappenas, penting bagi proses untuk mengintegrasikan data adalah terus berupaya mengembangkannya tanpa tetap tanpa mengurangi kecepatan di daerah dan di pusat, dan tetap untuk memperhatikan bahwa tantangannya berbeda-beda, dan ini harus dimediasi dengan mendirikan atau dengan membentuk pedoman yang bisa mengawal proses tersebut agar lebih jelas, baik dalam tahapan pembagian peran, kemudian secara teknis standarisasi datanya bagaimana. Dan untuk itu apa yang tim studi di UNS di Fakultas Teknik sedang lakukan berupaya ke arah sana gitu. Jadi penelitian yang sedang kami kerjakan diharapkan ya dapat memberi kontribusi setidaknya walaupun kecil, tapi dapat memberikan semacam kontribusi yang dapat meningkatkan bagaimana proses tadi yang disampaikan, decision making proses, kemudian kelancaran dalam proses komunikasi, dan bagaimana minimal membangun kesetaraan, keseragaman dalam cross-checking data itu dilakukan. Mulai dari tahap yang paling kecil, sebagaimana tadi disampaikan oleh Dr. Frederick ya, from a pilot case. Jadi dari yang paling kecil diintegrasikan lalu direplikasi ke yang paling besar. Terima kasih kepada kelima narasumber, Pak Sujono, Pak Ali Rahmat, Pak Ari Hadi, Profesor Yongping Wei, kemudian Dr. Frederick Bokart, dan juga Bapak Direktur Sumber Daya Air dari Bappenas. Kemudian sebentar, ya, Bapak Direktur dari Bappenas, Pak Muhammad Irfan Saleh, dan seluruh peserta yang hadir pada seminar pada hari ini, informasinya adalah bahwa bahan akan disampaikan setelah meeting ini diselesaikan, nanti akan didistribusikan via email. Kami mohon kerjasama dari Bapak Ibu bahwa kedepannya cerita yang kita diskusi air di sekitar Bengawan Solo sebagai pilot untuk pengelolaan yang lebih terintegrasi. Bapak Ibu, demikian diskusi pada hari ini. Semoga menjadi kemanfaatan untuk kita bersama. Saya akhiri, selamat siang, selamat sore, dan selamat malam. Saya pindahkan kembali ke Ibu Lintang sebagai MC. Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih Bapak Dr. Krisna selaku moderator yang telah memandu sesi materi, penyampaian materi. Terima kasih pula kepada seluruh narasumber yang telah menyampaikan materi yang luar biasa pada hari ini. Bapak, Ibu, dan para peserta yang saya hormati, sebelum menuju akhir acara, mohon untuk dapat menyalakan kameranya masing-masing untuk melakukan sesi foto bersama. To all the participants, please turn your camera on. We are having the photo session now. Baik, ada 4 halaman pada layar Zoom saya, akan di-capture satu persatu. Untuk halaman pertama, akan saya hitung 1, 2. Halaman kedua, 1, 2, 3. Halaman ketiga, 2, 3. Dan halaman keempat, 1, 2, 3. Baik, terima kasih. Dan kembali saya ingatkan kepada seluruh peserta